digital SAT guru in the house.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Today we're looking at the digital SAT linear test 1 from the College Board website. We're going to go over questions 1 through 6, taking a closer look at words in context. So here we go. Question number 1, and remember, this SAT has more questions than the actual digital practice ones on College Board. This one has 33 questions. The first 6 are words in context. And the way I like to approach all of these reading questions is to take a look at the question first. Now, by the time you get to the SAT, you'll have seen this question so many times, you'll have memorized it. And in fact, you should just be able to recognize it and recognize the type of problem this is by just looking at a few words in the question and noticing the answer choices are single words as opposed to phrases or sentences. So after we look at this, we go to the clause that has the blank space in it. So I'm starting with she after the comma. Okay. She blank that humans will someday need to be able to live in other environments than those found on Earth. Don't look at the answer choices. We need to get an answer in our head as to what could go here. It could be a word or a phrase or a definition if you can't really think of a word for it, but something that would go in our head. So I need a little bit more information to help me out on this. So let me go back. Former astronaut Ellen Ochoa says that although she doesn't have, now that although is a key word there, although she doesn't have a definite idea of when it might happen, she blank that humans will someday need. Okay, so she doesn't know for sure something, yet she, or because she doesn't know for sure, she blanks that humans will someday need to be able to live in other environments. Okay. I can kind of think that this might be she believes, she thinks, she guesses. Those are my thoughts. And what I also want to look for is this word this, or the word these, or those, or that in the sentence and in this passage. And I noticed that the next sentence says this conjecture. Conjecture. If you know what that means, that's basically a fancy word for guess. Okay. So this conjecture, what conjecture? Well, we're talking about this one. She guesses that humans will someday need to be able to live in other environments. So now let's look at the answer choices. We have A, demands, not the same thing as a guess. Speculates, yeah, that works. Doubts, okay, so if you read this carefully, you won't misinterpret it. But if you don't read it carefully, you may think, okay, well, she doubts that humans, she may doubt that humans need this. But that's not the way it comes across. The although makes us know that she's guessing, not doubting. There's nothing negative, no indication that this is negative. She establishes that humans, no, she doesn't do that. So guess, speculates is going to be our best answer here. Okay. So moving along, number 2, we look at the blank space and we see that the word this comes before the blank space. This blank effort. This blank effort. Okay, what kind of effort are we talking about? Let's go to the beginning of the sentence. So notice I didn't read on. I just stopped with effort. This blank effort. Beginning in the 1950s, Navajo Nation legislator Annie Dodge Waneka continuously worked. Okay, work sounds like an effort. And what kind of work or what kind of effort did she do? She did a continuous effort. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Continuous. What word means continuous? Impartial? No. Impartial means unbiased. Offhand? No. Persistent. Persistent means continuous. Mandatory? No. So we've got our answer here, persistent. All right. And notice in neither of these questions did we read the entire passage. Not necessary. You train yourself well, you don't need to read the entire passage. You just need to read the necessary words to get the answer right as quickly as possible. Now, let's go on to number 3 here. A collaboration between the Crow tribe and Montana State University blank this model. Okay, what model are we talking about? Following the principles of community-based participatory research, tribal nations and research institutions are equal partners in health studies conducted on reservations. Tribal nations and research institutions are equal partners. That sounds like our model that we're talking about. So a collaboration between the Crow tribe, that would be a tribal nation, and Montana State University, that would be a research institution. That is the model. They model the model. They demonstrate the model. Those are the words that come to my mind. Now let's look at the answer choices. How about A, circumvents? Now, if you don't know what that means, if you don't know what an answer means, keep it for now. Don't get rid of it. Let's look at B, eclipses. Well, that means to cover up. Fabricates. That means to create or make up. Usually it has a negative, often has a negative connotation to it. Exemplifies. That means to make an example out of. If we're demonstrating something, if we're demonstrating the model, then that means we're making an example of it, or we're creating an example. So we are exemplifying the model here. That's perfect. So D is our answer. Circumvents, by the way, means to get around something. So that one doesn't work. So we don't need to take too much time when we're doing our first pass at our answer choices to eliminate words that we don't know or confusing answer choices. We can just leave them for now and see if the correct answer choice jumps out at us. And in this case, it did, okay? And this is part of the two-pass process that I mentioned in another video that you can look at. So now let's look at number 4 here. Okay, we've got in 2020, Zhang Kwang Wu, I believe that's how you pronounce the name. Now, by the way, when you run into vocabulary or names or jargon, jargon means words that are specifically tied to a topic. Like, for instance, free throws and three-pointers are basketball jargon. Okay, so if you run into words that you're not familiar with, our habit as good readers is to stop and try to figure out what these mean or try to remember, try to pronounce these words in our head. You don't have time for that, okay? You want to get to the answer as quickly as possible and only think about what a word might mean if the SAT makes you think about it, if it's required for the question. As of right now, it's not required for us to know how to pronounce this name. So we keep going. Wu and his colleagues determined that the tiny daughter achieves this blank. Again, this blank. What is it that they're achieving? This what? Okay, let's go back to the beginning. The parasitic daughter plant, okay, that we're just talking about, increases its reproductive success. That seems important. By flowering, that may be important too. At the same time, that may be important too, as the host plant it has latched onto. Okay, so it achieves this reproductive success. It achieves this flowering. at the same time. Okay. Let's see if it's one of those two things. So looking at the answer choice, the first word is synchronization. Synchronization. What does that mean? Well, if you synchronize your watches with somebody, you're setting them at the same time as somebody else. At the same time, we're achieving this something at the same time. Okay. Hibernation, nothing about hibernation. Not sure if plants hibernate, but nothing mentioned there. Prediction, there's nothing mentioned about a prediction, and there's nothing mentioned about moderation. So we can eliminate choices B, C, and D, and we are left with choice A, synchronization, and that is the correct answer. So remember, there are two ways of getting to the answers on the SAT. All right, you can either get to them by knowing and identifying the correct answer choice, or you could get to them by eliminating the wrong answers. All right. So you don't have to do both. I would recommend doing both in practice, but when you are timing yourself or when you're actually taking the SAT, you may not have time to do both approaches. So rather than sit there and try to remember or figure out what synchronization means, if we eliminate B, C, and D, then we know that that's our answer, even if we're not confident with that word, our understanding of that word or understanding of that answer choice. Okay. So that's important to know. Sometimes we're going to pick answers that we're not comfortable with because we've eliminated the wrong answers. So now let's go to number 5. It's not, so we're looking at the comma. It's not surprising that the existence of planets in such systems has lacked explanation. Such systems. That's what I want to know, what it's talking, what is it talking about here? Given that the conditions in binary star systems, okay, binary star systems, that's the such systems, should make planetary formation nearly impossible. So we shouldn't even be able to produce these planets, yet we have the existence of planets in these systems. So it's not surprising that their existence, blank explanation, lacks a blank explanation. Well, it seems like it's going to be difficult to explain this. So maybe it lacks a simple explanation. If it's hard to explain, then we are going to need a more complex explanation. So let's see if simple is our answer. A, discernible. If we discern something, we're able to pull it apart from something else. We're able to distinguish it. And we could distinguish simple explanations. We could distinguish complex explanations. So that's not it. Straightforward. Straightforward. Okay. Straightforward means that we don't get caught up with a lot of details. So simple would work there. Yeah. A straightforward explanation that makes sense and that works. Inconclusive. Nope. Doesn't mean simple. Quite the opposite. Not exactly the opposite, but it's certainly something that would lead to confusion if we don't have a conclusive explanation. Unbiased. Doesn't say anything about bias there. So straightforward is our answer for this one. Okay. Number 6. Seminole Muskogee director Sterling Harjo blank television's tendency to situate native characters in the distant past. Okay, he blanks a tendency. Blanks a tendency. I need to read on. I'm real confused here. This rejection. Okay. He blanks a tendency. That is a rejection. This rejection. Okay, that's what he's doing. That's what this is referring to. This rejection. So He rejects a tendency, maybe. I like that word. Let's take a look at the answer choice to see if we see something like rejects. A, repudiates. Okay, that may be one that I don't know what it means, so let's keep it for now. B, proclaims. He proclaims a tendency. That's not the same thing as reject. You could proclaim your rejection, but you don't have to. So B is too general. Let's leave it out. C, foretells. That means to predict. So no, that's not it. Recants. What does recant mean? Well, I've seen cant before, either talking about speech or talking about singing. So recant, would that mean you're doing it again? You're speaking again? You're singing again? Or does it mean that you're taking it back? So I'm going to guess there that it has something to do with one of those actions, either taking back something you said or saying it again. But neither of those really leaves me with an idea of rejection there. I think it's going to be A, for lack of a better solution. We eliminate B and C for sure. D, I think we can eliminate, and that leaves us with A. So there's a little strategy. And by the way, repudiates and reject mean about the same thing. So it is A, but that's a strategy if you're stuck with two words that you're not familiar with. What can you figure out about one of the words? Is there some context clue looking at the base that will help you get to the answer? So that's how we want to approach these. And hopefully this was helpful to you. If it was, please like the video and subscribe for more videos. And look down in the comments section if you're interested in finding out more, learning more how to ace this SAT. If you're looking for classes or private instructions, we can do that as well. So just leave some information in the comments. Love to get back to you. Thanks so much, and we'll see you later.